Well, good afternoon, brothers and sisters. I'm Janet Moreno, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Live with Janet. And of course, today in the studio, I have asked Father Frank Pavone, our National Director, to join me. So thanks for joining me
It's
today.
good to be here and with all our great viewers.
That's right. Well, you know, Father, this whole coronavirus thing has been, as you know, for months and months and months go on. And of course, you know, we woke up this morning to the sad news that now President Trump and Melania Trump have also tested positive. And of course, we know people have tested positive. I know people who've passed away up in New York and so on. And so, but I'd like to go back. You know, when you think about it, when we were at the March for Life, we didn't even know there was a coronavirus when you think about it, right? At the March for Life in January. And then all of a sudden, maybe about a week or so after that, we heard the president closed the borders to China. It was the very first thing he did, wasn't it?
In January, it was still January.
It was still January when he closed, because he heard about the virus. He was warned that this could be a pandemic. It hadn't even been called a pandemic yet. But this is where we could go. So he said, well, that's it. We're going to stop all flights, all airlines, no flights.
And people have to
China.
understand that was his idea.
It was his idea.
He listens to his advisors. The doctors and the experts have said, you know, he's always followed the, the guidance, the scientific guidance. But that was an initiative, and we see this time and time again in a lot of these different policy areas, where he had an insight. And, you know, what separates him from a lot of other presidents in the past is the decisiveness.
That's
you know,
right.
It doesn't just sit there and, you know,
oh, what
consult,
should we do?
Keep deliberating, you know, ad infinitum. He made a decision.
That's right.
And you know, a lot of his people were saying, gee, I wouldn't have done that, you know. But he was proved right.
Well, Vice President Biden criticized him for closing
the borders.
He
called it xenophobic and hysterical.
Nancy Pelosi criticized him too, and they were calling him racist. You were against the Chinese. It was a whole blow up. But when you think about it, imagine if he hadn't taken that action all the way back in January. Where would we be now?
There could have been hundreds of thousands or millions more people who got
sick,
not only
died.
Infected,
right.
but died. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you think about it, you know, then we got into February, and you heard. I can remember I took my grandchildren. We went on a cruise in February, and there was no
things were
thought
not being shut
down. We weren't even thinking about the coronavirus. We hardly even knew about it.
Everybody, we have to realize, everybody was in the dark. You know, hindsight is 20/20.
Right.
But everybody was dealing with something entirely new.
That's right.
And there were lots of people, including experts, saying, "Oh, this is no big deal. This is no problem. This is not going to be a problem." You know, I mean, we had been through health emergencies before.
Exactly.
You know.
and other viruses and
Right.
things. And I think initially everyone thought, oh, that's a problem over in China. Oh, that now it's in Italy.
Yeah.
They never thought it was coming here. Really, when you think back to those months, we were just going busy. You and I even had a few conferences in February we attended and things like that. But then we got into the middle of March, and boom, they closed the New York City public schools, and then it kind of snowballed after that, and then the whole country shut down.
Well, once the middle of March came, that's when things really started getting
started to
intense.
brew.
Yeah.
But I think people forget what it was like as we go through this all. Then there was the whole debate: wear masks, don't wear masks. But then by that point, everybody was wearing masks. Everybody was locked down. And I remember the president was doing like daily briefings with Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, and everybody. I mean, he had a whole team of people he was surrounded by, him and Vice President Pence, and they were paying attention to the medical experts. Whatever they were advising, they were going with their advice.
They took the most decisive action based on the medical information that was becoming available day by day. This was actually an historic mobilization.
That's right.
The most intensive, extensive mobilization since World War II. And he did something historic in the way that, first of all, it was what they are calling an all-of-government response. Right. He got all the agencies involved working together with one another. And then the other dimension about it, besides his decisiveness, his early action, closing off transportation from China and then later or shortly thereafter from Europe. But besides that, the whole of government response, and then remember, we're talking about a successful businessman here.
Right.
So when you have a successful businessman who knows the world of business and now is president, he was able to create an historic public-private partnership. You remember one day in particular where there was this big press conference, and all these CEOs of outlets that we're used to seeing every day. CVS was there, and Walmart, and one after another, all these, and these men and women who head up these companies were coming up to the podium. Okay, here's what we're going to do, and here's what we're going to do. And the president also had companies and factories, manufacturing outlets. Instead of manufacturing the things they usually make,
they were switching over.
They switched gears, and they were making extra hand sanitizers and masks and other things, to the point that we were able to see an unprecedented response here.
That's right.
Private, public partnership, and all those CEOs were saying, there's never been anything like this before. Thank you, Mr. President, for doing this.
Well, yeah, because what he did was, I called them like thematic little roundtables. He called in, like first he did all the drug companies. Then another time, besides like CVS and Walgreens and those places, another time then he bought the top guns, the people who who he was charging with to start researching for a vaccine. He bought all those companies. And it was funny, it was kind of like the first time probably all those big companies decided like, yeah, we're not going to kind of fight each other for competition. We're all in this together.
No. And he brought them together.
He brought them together and said that now's not the time to see who's going to get the credit for getting the vaccine first, who's going to do. No, we're going to need so much vaccine, you're all going to get the business. So let's just get moving and working on this. And again, smart businessman, because he looked at it like you're saying, Father, not like a politician, like, oh, how is this going to affect my party, and how's this, no.
You know when one of the first times that people were really starting to hear about and realize that there was a problem, we mentioned he cut off China travel in January, but it was February 4th, the State of the Union address. Think back now all the way to then. Here's what he said during the State of the Union address. He pledged to, quote, take all necessary steps to safeguard our citizens from the virus. Now, Democrats weren't saying a word about it at that point.
No, not a word.
But he said in the State of the Union address, so the wheels were turning. I mean, they were paying attention
to the statistics and what was going on. Yeah. I just want to remind our viewers here and listeners, if they have a question, they can ask me a question, and we'll address those questions.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you said the middle of March came and he initiated the slow the spread mitigation steps. Remember, we were holding up those guidelines every day. We were doing it in our daily broadcast. It was being posted everywhere. First, it was 15 days to slow the spread. Remember,
Right.
that was from the middle of March
Right. To the
end of March.
Right.
Right? And social distancing, remember even things like, well, of course, the frequent hand washing, the hand sanitizers, don't go to work if you show symptoms.
If you're sick,
Work remotely if you can. And employers, including us,
Right.
started getting into this mode of, okay, everybody work from home.
Right.
Of course, we already had a system set up for that. But, for a lot of businesses and churches, it was the first time that they had to, really develop a
That's right.
remote system.
And I remember there was all these lessons about how to hand wash. and
20
how
seconds,
long.
yeah,
What
yeah,
I used
yeah.
to say, Father, I did this on my previous shows. I used to tell them, if you can say the Our Father while you're washing your hands, then that will be at least enough time. And this way
Right,
you're praying
right.
and washing all at the same time.
Right,
And of
right.
course, we're still supposed to be doing all those things.
Well, then the 15 days to slow the spread then turned into the 30 days, all the month of April.
The whole month of
Because
April,
again, they were, we did flatten the curve.
That's right.
The idea was, let's slow the spread of this thing until we get up. And, two things were happening at the same time. That the spread was being slowed down
Right.
by mitigation. In other words, take steps that will make it less likely that this disease will be transmitted. But at the same time, research was going on. What is this virus? How does it go from person to person? What are its effects? What can what medicines can we develop to treat it or to counteract it? And again, we did not know much at all about it. But so the research had to go develop while the steps were being taken based on what we did know to slow the spread. This was not an easy thing to
right.
maneuver. And I got to laugh at people, who criticize the president or criticize anybody else, sitting in their ivory towers, in their armchairs. Oh, well, you should have done this and you should have done that. And who in the world are you? What kind of crystal ball did you have, right? What kind of direct access to the Almighty's mind did you have that you think you would have done any better if you were in that position? I mean, the arrogance just astonishes me.
And he employed, like you're saying, Father, all the different tools he had, all the different branches. So like civil engineers, the Army Corps of Engineers. I can think, we're both originally from New York, and I remember Governor Cuomo complaining and bellyaching that we don't have enough hospital beds, we don't have enough ventilators.
Oh, no, but he...
So what did the president do? He said, that's it, we're going to get them the supplies. He got them the ventilators. They gave them enough equipment, Father, that they opened the Jacob Javits Convention Center and made it, and the Army Corps engineers came in and made it like a staging hospital.
Right.
They sent that ship,
The
the
ship.
Hope. The Hope.
Yeah, well, there's the Comfort.
Right.
And the Mercy out on the west coast.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's one they sent to New York. Do you know they didn't get one patient go on board?
Well, and New York didn't manage it too well.
And then he has the whole Javits Center set up with hospital beds and ventilators. And what does he do? He sends these patients to nursing homes.
You're talking about Cuomo.
Cuomo,
the
yes,
Democrat
that's what I'm
governor
talking
of
about.
New
Governor
York.
Cuomo.
No, but Cuomo.
And half the supplies, most of the supplies that the president ordered up there for New York, he didn't even use them all.
Well, Cuomo did, and also the governor of California, also Democrat, Newsom, and a lot of the other governors, they did praise.
They praised him.
The president
They praised
and
the
said,
president.
"Listen, he couldn't have done any better, with what was going on."
What they said they needed, he delivered.
That was the thing. He said to them, and remember, we have to also keep in mind the structure of our government.
Right.
The federal government is separate from the state governments.
Right.
So, as the president made clear, the federal government can step in under certain circumstances where certain needs aren't being met, but basically the governance of a state belongs to the state.
Right.
Not to the president. It belongs to the state.
Exactly.
So, and they would have these regular conference calls with the governors, together with Vice President Pence, who oversaw the coronavirus task force, and they would have regular communication with the governors. I mean, it was a great partnership, and they kept saying how good it was, and everyone was cooperating. But to this day, as the president points out, nobody in this whole country who needed a ventilator at any time
didn't get what they
didn't
needed.
get one.
That's right.
It was a success.
It was a success.
This deployment of not only the things like ventilators, which are complicated machines to make, But the protective equipment also for the medical personnel,
Right.
this was produced at record time. And see, the president knows how to cut down on red tape. This is one of the things that accounts for a great deal of success here and preventing this thing from getting much worse, is that the president knows how to make a project take a much less time at much less expense and end up a much better product. He has been doing this in real estate for years. I mean, it's sort of like, when the embassy was moved to Jerusalem, which in itself was a great thing. Other presidents had promised to do,
Right.
and it didn't get done. But you remember the story of how the people responsible there for getting the embassy up and running said to him, "Well, sir, we have our plan here to build the embassy, and I forget how much it was going to cost, $1 billion or something." And he said, "Here, does it have to cost that much? Don't we have some land over there already? Aren't there buildings that we already own over there?" So, through his business and real estate sense, right, he got them to move from this gigantically expensive project of building a new embassy to something that utilized an existing building that they renovated on land that we already had. It ended up being a better facility. And at first they said, "Oh, well, it cost $500,000. Meanwhile, it was
A fraction of what the original plan was.
And I bring that up just as an example of how he took care of something in New York, took care of a lot of things in New York. But there was all these stories about projects that, they were in really bad shape, and he came in and he made them better at a lower cost. It's amazing. And so I'm saying that these skills of his, he now applied to this problem.
Right.
Cut out red tape and got the production of medical equipment, the deployment of personnel, and he used also, there's the Defense Production Act. He invoked it. This is a provision of law that enables,
The
quicker
president to do that.
to
do those
respond
things.
to these
emergencies, right.
He invoked it over 30 times in dealing with this emergency. And he was able to succeed.
Right. And someone commented, Father, about our show just now. They're saying, "Oh, it's about time that someone is really disputing all the fake news that's out there about the president and the coronavirus."
It's disgraceful.
It's disgraceful.
The fake news is absolutely disgraceful.
Right.
Just like the president says, it is a disgrace. The way that they lie, half-truths, things that they know better. They know better.
Right.
And they deliberately manufacture and misrepresent things. It's unbelievable. And especially on something like this, they have no right to be criticizing anybody. Everyone was operating in the dark.
That's right.
I mean, I would like to see any one of them be in the position of commander-in-chief, be the head of the country in the midst of this unprecedented, once-in-a-century type of event.
That's
I
right.
would like to see any one of those loudmouths be in this position and see how they would do.
Well, the other thing too, Valerie, you're pointing out that he's a successful businessman, right? So now, when they're all probably telling him back in March, okay, we're going to try this 15 days to slow the spread, and they probably were saying, but if that doesn't do it enough, we might have to shut the country down. Now, can you imagine a business? He must have been sitting there saying to himself, "Now, wait a minute. Oh my gosh, shut the country down. That's going to have a big economic effect. People are going to lose jobs."
He knew, yes.
He knew. He was calculating all this. But then when the evidence became so apparent to him with these medical experts, he said, "I guess we have no choice. I guess as painful as this is going to be, we're going to have to shut the country down." And that's when he called on Congress to say, we got to help the people. We got to come up with, and that's when they came up with the assistance for the unemployment and everything.
Oh, that assistance was tremendous.
Yeah, I mean, and that went out in record time. That people got those checks automatically and everything else.
Right.
But for him to shut down the country, I mean, we're here in Florida. We're like an hour away from Disney World, and I mean, there's so much tourism here. We're watching cruise ships sitting off the coast here. They just come in and get more fuel and supplies and go back out again.
Yeah.
But there's no ships cruising. The planes, we know some people have been on planes lately. They're a half full. So nothing has gotten really back fully, in gear.
Yeah.
And so I think the fact that jobs are on the upswing right now, the economy
Very
is coming
fast.
back up.
Very fast.
Considering we shut the whole country down for a whole month, and it's been slow getting back, that I think the president's doing a wonderful job.
Well, actually, I mentioned before an older statistic. He invoked the Defense Production Act over 100 times. Now, he has continued to use it as the circumstances 100 times. And of course, the testing now, we just the other day passed a milestone of reaching over 100 million tests done for this virus in the United States, more than any other country.
Right.
But it's now, as we're sitting here speaking, over 111 million tests. These tests are being done almost 1 million a day. And now they're deploying these rapid tests, 150 million of these rapid point of care tests, Abbott tests as they're called, that you can get the results in 15 minutes. So it's really awesome. And the more testing you get, the more cases you're going to uncover. But a lot of these cases, people have very mild symptoms to none.
Yes.
And certainly. As far as the deaths are concerned, that's mostly in nursing homes.
It's mostly elderly people, or when it's younger people, it's people who had a pre-existing condition of some sort.
Right.
That meaning their immune system was already challenged and suppressed, and therefore they were more vulnerable. Like, for example, let's talk about Janet. Janet had a member of my family, a relative. I was with them, shared a hotel room with them for several days. Mm-hmm. We were at a conference just a few weeks ago, and she came down with the coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And matter of fact, she's still at home sick. And of course, what did I do? I went right away to get tested, and I was tested negative. But then they said, because you came in such close contact with someone who now has the coronavirus, you have to shelter at home. So I worked from home for 2 weeks. And I just went the other day, I got retested, and I'm negative again. I think we have to realize, just like with the flu, some people get it, some people don't get it, but you still take all the precautions. That's what you have to do.
Well, the hospitalizations have declined over the last 8 or 10 weeks declined 48%.
Wow,
that's a big
great
dip. And the fatality rate from this disease since the month of April has declined, people have to understand, 85%. 85% decline in the fatality rate. This is better than other countries are doing, and thank God for this progress.
Well, and like the president has said, and we would agree too, just losing one life is one too many.
Of course.
But because of this decline like we have right now, it shows that we're making progress, we're getting it under control, we've flattened the curve, it's gone down.
Well,
and it's because everyone's cooperating.
Well, there were some scary days in April. We were being warned, Remember, there was a certain point at which, the president, in a very somber way, together with those medical doctors heading up these different agencies, said, we have to brace ourselves the next 2 weeks are going to be rough. Remember, there was a certain point there in April,
and it was
just before
scary.
Easter, just before Easter, and it was like, what's about to happen? And praise God, the projections there of the numbers, it could have gotten to 2 million deaths, and nobody knew exactly what was going to happen. They were estimating based on what they knew at the time, and looking carefully at the numbers every day, but we conquered that, far. We ended up being far lower than what those scary possibilities could have been. Mm-hmm. And so, we mourn together with every family that has lost somebody. We know people, of course, as I'm sure many of our viewers do. But that doesn't take away the fact that this could have been way worse.
Oh, could have.
And people have to not be afraid to say that. It could have been way worse. And again, it was thanks to the leadership of this whole team that the president put together. Public sector, all of government, private sector, Operation Warp Speed now to develop the vaccine. Warp Speed. Again, you got a person here at the helm who knows how to not cut corners in terms of safety and quality, But to cut corners in terms of red tape and unnecessary
right.
regulations.
He's great at cutting through the red
tape.
tape.
And there's also, again, he invoked this Defense Production Act over 100 times. There's a lot of things built into the law that allow, in cases of emergency, at the discretion of the president and his, respective government agencies, to expedite things. And they're utilizing all of those provisions of the law.
Well, someone was asking me, Father, that they want to know, do we believe people should quarantine after traveling to New York or other hot states, right? And basically, I don't think so. I mean, like here in Florida, our governor has opened our borders. He, for a while there was tit for tat, right? If you came here from New York, you had to quarantine, they said, for 14 days. And then if you went from here, then Cuomo said, well, if you come from Florida up here, now you have to quarantine.
Right.
When our numbers were going up.
Look.
But I don't think that matters. I think what matters is the people that you're surrounding, that you're going to visit or see, are they also practicing the guidelines? Are they social distancing? Are they washing their hands, wearing masks, using sanitizer?
Well,
I mean,
yeah, but
I don't think you can start putting up this border stuff.
Well, yeah, but the question there too is, what is the local state saying?
Right.
Remember, this is a fluid situation, and one has to see, like for example, now, there's certain areas where they're seeing some more cases. Other areas, like in Louisiana, this just came out the other day. Not long ago, 50 of the parishes in Louisiana, they call them parishes, right? The areas, had more than 10% positivity rate, and now only 3 of them are testing over 10%. Arizona was testing 20% positivity rate, now it's less than 4%. At different times, the circumstances changing, and not only within different states, but within different counties.
Right.
So whether or not you have to quarantine, our basic advice is follow the direction of local government.
That's right.
Local, and again, sometimes it's going to differ within the same state.
Yeah.
From county to county. We're fortunate to live in a county here
that
is among the lowest cases.
Lowest. We're very lucky. But the counties here in Florida that are the highest are like Miami-Dade, up in Orange County. And Orange County is actually up where the airport is, Orlando Airport, and Walt Disney World, Universal, and all the theme parks, which, by the way, have opened, and they've been open for a while now. And I can report. I went to Epcot a couple weeks ago.
You went there, yeah.
I went.
Yeah.
You have to wear a mask the whole time, which I didn't mind. It's a little annoying after a while. But if you're stopping to eat something and just stay stationary, then you take off your mask while you stand and eat at the little table. But then as soon as you get up to leave, you put the mask back. And you know what they did, Father? It was kind of interesting. They had those 6 feet squares, those little circles on the ground outside to queue up. To go into something. And then with the rides, I was over you're familiar with this ride in Epcot, The Land. And it's where you go in these little cars and they take you around to see how they're hydroponics and they're growing everything. So normally, it's an open car. And now they have these big plastic shields up between each row. And then they have one row empty. And then when the people get out of the ride, there's a crew. It looks like ants at a picnic. They descend upon the car
and they're
wiping everything down. And you know how fast these cars move then to get the next load of people. So I would say my impression was they're keeping everything very, very safe. Even the queuing up to get food or get anything, they have the little circles on the grounds, and you're supposed to stay 6 feet apart. They have the big plastic shields up so that you pass everything under the shield to each other. So, again, the president is right. We have to begin to get back to
Absolutely.
living.
Listen, we have to. And he also is very, very sensitive to, and this is not just his idea, but all kinds of other experts in the different agencies saying, there is not only an economic, but there is a health cost to the shutdowns.
Right.
A health cost.
And that's
there's a health cost in
yes.
keeping students home from school.
Absolutely.
There's a health cost, nutritionally, psychologically, educationally. Domestic abuse issues, very often it's in school that signs are seen, and so on.
You know what business is booming all through the pandemic? Liquor stores. People are drinking more.
Yeah.
And they said alcoholism is increasing.
Domestic violence, despair, suicide,
Suicides
depression.
are up, depression is up.
There's a cost.
There is. There's a cost.
And the president knows this, and he's caring for the American people across the board.
That's right.
Across the board. He's not reckless. He's not saying open up and take no safety precautions. He's doing it exactly the right way. By the way, I want to. We don't have a whole lot more time here. I want to point out to people something. They listen to us, and we appreciate our folks listening to us here. But the point is that I want them to go online. I want them to go to Google and get for themselves these two documents I have in my hand. One of them is, here's what you Google. You Google whitehouse.gov. That's the White House website, whitehouse.gov, coronavirus response. If you Google that, you will see on the White House website a beautiful list summarizing some of the things we've been saying. Secondly, just today, we got this report out of the Congress, the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Crisis. President Trump's plan, a whole of America response, like we were saying, and it's subtitled Steadfast Leadership Through an Unprecedented Crisis. This is a very thorough report. All right, these are the facts. Never mind the fake news their disgraceful.
And the sound bites.
Absolutely disgraceful. No, these are the kind of things we've got to be smart about. Look for the Coronavirus Crisis Subcommittee report from the United States Congress. So this plus the White House, you'll get a lot of facts.
And then finally, Father, of course, we at Priests for Life have a Pray for 45 T-shirt.
We do.
We've had for months, even before now the President and Melania tested positive. But this is a great thing to show everybody. We are with you, Mr. President. We're praying for you.
Absolutely.
So if anyone would like a Pray for 45 T-shirt, just go to prolifeproducts.org. That's our online store. And while you're there, you can also get some items for the election, like our comparison piece to talk about the difference between the Republican and Democratic parties and so on, because we have to all be in this election. And as I always say, do the best we can to keep the pro-life candidates in office.
Pro-life across the board.
That's right. So I love this shirt. It's Pray for 45.
Pray for President Trump. Yeah.
That's right. Pray for our president. And I really just wish people would stop criticizing him. I've never heard the amount of criticism.
No, they've got it.
Since the moment he was elected, it has been nonstop.
And you know what it is? It's unjust criticism.
Unjust.
It's hateful criticism.
Hate.
It's lies. Terrible. We all are all free. One of the basic freedoms in America is that we can criticize our public officials. But you criticize them fairly. You criticize them if you disagree on policy, right? These are not. This isn't that. We're not talking about that. We're talking about hateful, ad hominem lies, and disgraceful comments. It has got to stop. He's not the source of the hatred and division that we see. It's the left, it's the fake news, and it's the Democrats.
That's right. That's right. So let's pray for 45.
Yes.
And let's pray that he and Melania just recuperate quickly.
Yes.
Like so many other Americans are doing. I know people have had the virus and are recuperated. One of our employees that works in another location, she got the virus. She had to tough it out for about a month, but she's back at work. She's doing fine. And that's we don't hear. Where's all the positive cases? We don't hear about what's the number of people who have gotten over coronavirus. Notice they don't tell you that, Father. So let's continue to pray for everyone in our nation, anyone who has a family member who's hurting. And also, like I said, let's pray for our wonderful president. Pray for 45. Well, Father, thank you for joining me on Just Ask Janet segment this afternoon. And this was a special segment we did, brothers and sisters, just because of the news with the president. In fact, Father and I were supposed to be at that rally
with him tonight
at the rally in Sanford. So hopefully when he gets better, he'll come back to Florida and we'll get to go to the rally then.
He will.
He will. Well, this is Janet Moretta saying goodbye and God bless.
I think we have Richard Lee, we have Jim Garlow, and we have Father Frank Pavone. Someplace they were in the audience, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you being.
Follow him, Father Frank Pavone, Fr. Frank Pavone, on Twitter. He is the National Director of Priests for Life. Please go to priestsforlife.org.